Hi, I'm Fee from Clifton Cameras, and as you're probably aware, we're working from home. We are trying to make the most of this situation, but in this particular series, we want to delve a little bit deeper into the nitty-gritty of the specifics of a particular photography style or genre. We'll give you a few hints and tips on the individual styles so that you can go away and have a practice yourself. We'll also set a few challenges so that you can put those new skills to the test. And in this opening episode, we're going to kick things off with macro photography. Okay, so what even is macro photography? In a nutshell, it's taking pictures of small subjects up close and personal. The strict definition is when the magnification of the subject in the photograph is life-size or greater. So essentially, this means that the subject that you're taking a photo of should be the same size or smaller than the size of your image sensor in the camera. So for example, this keyring, it's about the same size as the sensor in my full frame camera. Okay, so getting down to it, what do you actually need for macro photography? Camera, lens, and light. Camera always helps. It doesn't have to be a big fancy DSLR or mirrorless system. This can be a compact system that has a macro mode on it. The lens, you do need a specific macro lens. Now you may already know from your current lineup of lenses that you can't actually get in very close to your subject before you're unable to focus. Now a specific macro lens will allow you to get in really nice and tight to your subject. On a side note, macro lenses really are the Swiss Army knife in your camera bag. They come in focal lengths of around 100mm, so they're actually quite versatile and you can use them in other genres just like portrait photography. They have great depth of field and give you that really nice compression so that you can get really nice tack sharp subjects in focus but have that background really nice and soft and blurry. A lot of the high-end macro lenses are also stabilized so you can use them handheld and they work really well for videography as well. If buying a specific macro lens right now isn't an option for you and it's not already in your camera bag, then a slightly cheaper option is to get an extender tube or an extender which is a slightly lower cost. Alternatively, you can use some of the lenses already in your camera bag that aren't macro specific. Now if you are going to do this, please do this really carefully, but you take your lens, turn it the other way around so that the front element is actually sitting closely to your camera body. Now do that really carefully. It will be a really thin plane of focus, but it can actually create some really interesting shots. Okay, so getting back to it, the third thing we need for macro photography is light. Now you could probably spend a lot of money on fancy LED lighting and specific photography lighting, but you can actually just use the natural light coming in from a window or a bedside table lamp or a torch that you have lying around. This is actually another opportunity where you can be quite creative and find different light sources. So typical macro subjects usually include your insects and your bugs and flowers and fancy water droplets on leaves, but it doesn't have to be that way. There are plenty of items and objects in our own home that you can take pictures of in a completely unique and creative way, and you don't have to stick to that strict definition of macro photography. The bubbles inside your washing up liquid, the fret and strings of a guitar, or even the keyring from your car keys. There really is so much around your own home that you can get creative with. So how do you do this? How do you take simple images, as I've just done, from objects and items from in and around your own home? So starting with the bubbles image, I literally used a bottle of washing up liquid. I made sure to give it a good old shake so that all the bubbles form, and then I placed this in front of my patio doors so that I could use the natural light coming in. Now I wanted to capture as many of the bubbles in full detail as possible, so I went with an aperture of around f5.6. Now I shot this freehand, so although I made sure that I was supported as much as possible by lying on the floor, I had to go with a shutter speed of something that could cope with being handheld. So in this instance, along with the natural light that was coming in, I was around 2/50th of a second. Now this should negate any handheld shake that you get from holding the camera. And again, in terms of light with this one, you don't have to use natural light. You can use a torch or a lamp or something similar. It's really open to your interpretation. Now the guitar shot was slightly different. I wanted to be a little bit more creative in terms of the angles that I used. I still wanted to use natural light, so I just positioned the guitar so that the light was coming in behind me and made sure that my body didn't block any of this. It was pretty bright sunlight, so I went with an aperture of around f10, but this allowed me to get in really close to the subject whilst keeping that nice tack sharp in the foreground, but having that really nice separation with the background being really blown out, soft and blurry. Now again, I took this handheld, but I was able to use a shutter speed of around 125th of a second. I wouldn't recommend going much lower than this if you're shooting handheld, otherwise you might start to just see a little bit of camera shake. Now I tried a few different options and angles with the guitar. I also played around with different apertures so that I could really be picky about what I had in focus and what was really in that blown out and blurry background. I also realised that I should really play my guitar a lot more than I do, and I should probably also clean it. Now moving on to the keyring, I really wanted to capture all the detail of this, so I ramped the aperture up to around f13. Now I shot this in this office and the lighting isn't fantastic in here, so I had to rope in the assistance of my LED light. But in this instance, I wanted to really illuminate the subject so that I could have that aperture at around 13 or 14. Being at those apertures meant that I also had to really slow down my shutter speed. In this example, I was at around 1 second. Now to stop any camera shake when you are actually pressing the shutter button, you can connect your camera to an app on your phone or connect to a remote control. This means that when you take that picture, you're not actually physically moving the camera and getting any unnecessary or unwanted shake. Okay, so you've got the camera, the lens and the lighting. Now for the subject. Now, as I said before, this doesn't have to be the typical macro subject. This can be anything you want, and that's exactly what we want to challenge you to do. Go and find an object that means something to you, something within the confines of your own home, and take a few pictures of it to get used to the macro style. Make sure that you've got the right settings, exposure and aperture to get the desired image that you want. And then push the boundaries a little bit. Try and take something that's a little bit more creative, different angles, different lighting situations. Really try something different. And if you manage to get some that you like, get them on the social channels, tag us in them, and we'll try and feature a few of our favorites. We hope you found this video useful, and we look forward to seeing some of the images that you've taken. Just don't forget to tag us in your social media posts on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below or head over to our website where you can get in touch with us there. If you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help. Hit the subscribe button and the bell so that you get notified every time we put a new video out. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.